Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to model this detailed sword in Blender. We are going to model, texture, set up some lighting and add a nice spinning animation. And if you would like to support my work or commission a custom 3D piece, you can check out my Ko-fi page. Link is in the description below. So let's get started. Let's first go into front view, so by pressing 1. And let's open the reference image. You can find it in the description below. So Shift A, image and reference. And once you have it in your scene, we can just bring it up like this. And we can bring it a bit to the back, so G and Y. And let's go again to front view. And we can go to this image here and check opacity. And let's bring it a bit down. And let's first model this blade here. So we can just Shift A and open a plane. And let's bring it up and rotate it on the x-axis, so R, X and 90. And we can make it smaller. So about here. And let's bring it up on the z-axis to here. And now we can start modeling. So let's select these both edges. So go to your edge select and S and X to make it a bit wider. To about here. And now we can just select this edge here and extrude it down on the z-axis. And let's make it a bit longer than the reference image, because I think it is a bit too short, so to maybe something about this. And let's scale it just down, so just S and scaling it to something about this. And let's go to our X-ray mode to see it better. So let's give it a couple of loop cuts like this. Press this dot for your proportional editing, or you can just press O on your keyboard. And let's just scale it up, so S and X. To maybe something about this. And also this one, so S and X. And let's also scale this one here. And let's model this in the middle, so we can Shift S and cursor to select it. And let's open a plane again and rotate it. And let's make it smaller. And we can uncheck proportional editing, we don't need it. And let's go to our X-ray mode to see it better. And let's move it down and scale it. And let's make one loop cut here in the middle, and we can select these both and X and vertices. And let's go to our modifiers tab and we can add a mirror modifier. And let's also activate clipping. And now we can just give it a random shape, so we can extrude it up like this. And we can give it some more loop cuts. So let's extrude it down. And if you can't see the mirror in the edit mode, you can come here to this triangle and just check it. And now we see it. And let's also go to our proportional editing and S and X. And make it smaller. And let's just give it a shape, so we can go to our X-ray mode by Alt and Z. And let's go to our vertex select and we can make some loop cuts here. And also one here. And now we can just select this vertex here and we can disable proportional editing and just G to grab it. And we can move it a bit on the x-axis or something about this. And we can also add a subdivision to see it better, so Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision. And let's go to X-ray mode, and what you can also do, you can come here to this triangle again and check it. And now you see the original form, so we can give it more loop cuts like this. And maybe one here. And let's make the same process, so we can disable it, so we can uncheck this triangle to see it better. So let's give one more loop cut here and also one here. And again we can just select this vertex and grab it to the side, so G and X. And we have to give it one more loop cut here, so let's give it one more. And now it has a better shape and we can just adjust it however we like. And let's give one loop cut here and just scale it a bit down. And let's select these ones here and just scale it again. And also these ones. And let's repeat the process, so let's give it one more loop cut here and also one here, and select this edge and bring it up to here. And once you finished your shape, it can look something like this. And let's give it some thickness, so we can select everything and extrude it. Not too much, just a bit. Do something about this. So one more loop cut here And once you're happy with your shape, you can apply the mirror modifier, so Ctrl A to apply it. And let's select this upper vertex here, and let's go down to the last one, to here, and press Ctrl Shift and hold it, and then click this vertex. And we have this vertex selected, and we can go to our edge select, and let's bevel it, so Ctrl B. And once you have that, we can come down here to this bevel and change the offset to the %. And let's bevel it again to about here, and G and Y to move it outside just a tiny bit. And let's give it one more loop cut in the middle to here, and also one here. And now we have a shape like this. And let's go to toggle view to see it better. So you can just press slash on your keyboard, or you can go up here to view and local view and toggle local view. And now we can give it a better shape, so we can go to our vertex select, and let's select these vertices here, so we can go to our X-ray mode and to 1 and select these, and S and Y to move them more closer. And let's go to our proportional editing, and we can select them and move them a bit closer. And also down here, so let's go to 1 and X-ray mode and select this, and S and Y to about this. And let's go back and right click, shade smooth. And once we have that, we can give some thickness to the blade. So let's go to our edit mode again and select everything and just E to extrude, and just a tiny bit. And let's go to front view and X-ray mode, and you can select these vertices down here, and S and Y and proportional editing to make it a bit thinner. And let's give it one more loop cut in the middle to something about this. And let's hold Alt and Shift, and we can select these edges here, and also these ones, and on the other side as well. And what we can do next is just S and Shift and Z, and we can move this a bit more in. And as you can see, we have one more here, so we can just copy this one. So let's go to 1 and Shift D and R, Y and 180, and we can move it down. And we can just scale it down. So let's select this blade again and Shift S, cursor selected, and let's open a plane and rotate it, and let's place it in the middle like this, and one loop cut in the middle. And let's select these both and X and vertices and a mirror, and let's select these both edges and S and Z, and let's move it in the middle to about here. And now we can just give it a shape, so we can just move it to about here. And now we can just select this edge, and we can just extrude it and scale it, and also rotate it a bit to about here. And just again, just giving it a shape, and rotate again, and let's bring it to about here and scale it down. And now this part down here, so we can give one loop cut here and move it to this place. And now we can select this edge and extrude it down on the Z axis and scale it down. And also don't forget to enable your clipping. And now we can select this vertex and just move it closer, and one loop cut, and also here. And let's select this edge and just extruding it and rotating. And once we have that, we can give it a subdivision. And now we have to select this edge and just G to move it to about here. And we can give it one more loop cut here, and then just move this one up like this. And once we have that, we can give it some thickness. So let's select everything and just E to about here. And as you can see, we have some issues here, so we can go to our toggle view, and let's disable the mirror modifier so we can see it better. So we have to select both by holding Shift and X and faces, and let's enable our mirror again. And now we see it looks much better. And we can come back and right click, shade smooth. And if you see we have still issues, you can just select this edge and G to move it a bit like this, because they were intersecting, that's why it looks a bit weird. So just G and moving it a bit like this. And let's make one loop cut in the middle so we can give it some shape, and Ctrl B to bevel it. And let's also move it more to the middle, so as you can see it is not really aligned. So G and Y to move it a bit like this. And also these ones are not on the object, so we can select both and let's go to 3 and G and Y to move it in place. And let's select this blade here and let's go to our front view. So let's give it one more loop cut here to about in the middle, and we can select these edges and S to move it in and also a bit down so that it's not sticking out like this. And once we have that, we can also increase the subdivision, so we can give it 3, then it looks much better. So let's just do this object here, and for that we can just open a UV sphere and scale it down. And let's go to our edit mode and move it to about here. And the origin point has to stay in the middle, so we can use the mirror modifier. And right click, shade smooth. And let's go to our X-ray again and scale it down and move it. And let's go to 3 so we can come to our side view, and we have to select the middle one to maybe about this one. So this one is the right one, and let's go to 1 and enable proportional editing and then just grab it, so G to grab it, and now we can just move it down a bit and also just scale it a bit more and rotate it. And once we have that, we can give it some subdivision, so Ctrl 2 to give it subdivision. And let's go to 3 and G and Y to move it to here. And let's go again to our edit mode and select everything and S to scale it. And let's do this object here, so we can select this object. And let's hide the subdivision, so we can just press this little icon here. And we can go to 3 and select these faces. So maybe just these two here. And Shift D and P selection. And then we have the separate object, and we can select everything and E and Z to extrude. So let's click this icon again and also here. And let's adjust it so we can make one loop cut in the middle like this. And let's select this face here, so these both by holding Shift. And let's just extrude it. And right click to cancel, and you can just press G to move it to here. And again just extruding it and filling all this. And then we can make another loop cut here and move it down a bit. And let's make one loop cut here and Ctrl B to bevel it. And we can select this face here and E to extrude. And let's select these 3 faces and go to 1 and we can extrude it. So E to extrude and G to grab it on the Z axis. And we can select just this face and rotate it a bit and move it in place. And let's extrude it again, and we can just move it to about here. Maybe not this far, just a little bit. And we can also scale this edge more down. And just following this form here until we reach the tip, so we can extrude it one more time. And until here, and we can make it bigger to about this. And now we can just select this face and extrude it up, and then we can just scale it to about here. And let's give it one more loop cut so we have more control, so we can just scale it a bit more. And we can select this edge here, and we can then adjust it like this, and then just selecting a couple of faces and moving it around until you're happy with your shape. And once we have that, we can make these smaller ones, so we can go to 1 and let's see where the leaf is, so in this face. So let's go to face select, and we can select this face here and then just E to extrude it and right click, and we can move it to about this and rotate it and make it smaller, and then again just extruding it and adjusting. And let's make it a bit bigger on the Y axis, so S and Y, and let's extrude again and move it to here and rotate it and make it smaller. And we can also select these faces here, and then we can move it again, so we can move it to about this. And then we have a shape like this, and we can make these ones down here. So let's see again where it starts, so maybe here. And we can select these both, and we can come to 1 and E to extrude them. Let's go to X-ray mode to see it better, and we can align it to about here. And let's extrude it again to about here, and we can make it bigger. And again extruding it and making it bigger like this. So just S to scale it up, and again just rotate it a bit and bring it in place. We can also give one loop cut in the middle like this. And now we can select this edge here and we can G to move it a bit, and then it is more pointed. We can select these faces and E again and right click and G, and let's rotate it and scale it. And as you can see, we have these objects on top, so we can make this also. So let's select these faces and Shift S, cursor to select it, and we can select the plane and rotate it, and we have to scale it down, and let's scale it some more, and we can bring it up, and let's adjust it to maybe about here. And now we can just make this form, so we can rotate it and place it, and let's make one loop cut in the middle, and we can just select all of these vertices here, so just holding Shift and S to scale them down, and we can bring it up in place. And you can also move this one in the middle a bit more up to about here. And let's just select this edge down here and E to extrude it. And also make it a bit bigger. And once we have that shape, we can make a subdivision, so Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision. And now we can add a shrink wrap, so search for a shrink wrap. And let's select this eyedropper here, and we can select this object. And now you see it pretty much lost its form, so we can go to here, this wrap method here, and change it to target normal project. And now you see it looks much better. And let's apply the modifier, so we can apply this one and also the shrink wrap. And we can select everything and E to give it some thickness like this and shade it smooth. And now we can move it to the other side and give it a mirror. And as you can see, it is not in the middle, so it looks not right. So let's change that, and we can select this object and Shift S, cursor to select it. And next choose this object here and right click and set origin to 3D cursor. And now it is in the middle. And as you can see, it moved to this other side. And before we do this object here, we can make this a bit more pointier, so we can select this and we can add a loop cut here, but not too close, and otherwise it is pinching a lot. And let's select this object and Shift S, cursor to select it, and let's just add a plane again, so plane and rotate it, and let's scale it and bring it to place. Let's give one more loop cut here and go to vertex select, and let's delete them and add a mirror again. And now we can make this a bit smaller, and let's bring it to here. Move these vertices, so G and X, move this about here to make it pointier. And we can move this a bit more down. And also let's bring it a bit more in to about here. And we can select these up here and bring it down. So just adjusting it to maybe about this. And we can select this face here and just extruding it up and scale it. And don't forget your clipping. And let's select this vertex here and move it to about this. And again select this edge and move it up to about here. And we can select this edge and E to extrude it on the x-axis to about here. And let's select this vertex here and we can move this to about here. And let's just do the same process, so extruding it and bring it in place like this. And move it to about here. And now we can select this edge and extrude it up to about here and just scale it. And we can give it some more loop cuts like this. And let's just adjust the form, so we can go to our proportional editing and move this to about here, and also this one. And we can select this edge here and then just extruding it up and rotate it a bit and extrude it again. And we can give it some more loop cuts and Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision. Again, just extruding these edges here and scaling them. Select everything and E to give it thickness. Don't make it too thin, so maybe about here, so we can make this handle here. And right click, shade smooth. And as you can see, we have some issues here, so we have to fix that. Let's go to 1 and X-ray mode, and we can select all of these vertices down here and X and vertices, and we can select just this edge here by holding Alt and click it, so this one down here. Let's go to 1 and E to extrude it. Let's just extrude it more down until somewhere about here. Once you're happy with your shape, you can apply it, the mirror. So let's apply the mirror, Shift A, and now we can scale this down here. So we can go to X-ray mode and select this edge, and S and Shift and Y, so it is not scaling on the Y-axis. And let's also select this edge here, and again just scaling it, so S and Shift and Y. And let's select this object, and we can move it a bit more in the middle. We also have to make it a bit more narrow here, and we also have to fill this face. So let's go to toggle view and edit mode, and we can select these edges. So let's select one on this side and on the other one, and F to fill it, and then just this one here and holding F. Let's go to face select and select all of these faces by pressing C, and if you want to deselect, you can just press middle mouse button. Let's also enable our proportional editing in S and Y, and let's also make these decorations here. So let's select this object, Shift S, cursor selected, and select plane. Let's rotate it and make it smaller, and we can stay in edit mode and bring it to here, and we can also disable proportional editing, and let's make it smaller, and a mirror again. And let's go to our X-ray mode, and we have to move it to about here, and you have to stay in edit mode when you move it, and we can move it and rotate it to here. And let's select this edge and extrude it. And once we reach this point, we can make a loop cut in the middle, and we can select this one here and just extrude it down. And then we can make one more loop cut here, and we can make a shape, and also one here. And let's select the other edge, and we can make the same as we did before, so just extruding it. And once we reach this point here, we can move this to about here. So we have to align these both edges and rotate it a bit, and then just extruding it again to align to this one. And now we can select these both edges here and F to fill it. And once we have that, we can Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision. And let's disable the proportional editing, and we can move it a bit more on the Y-axis like this. Let's add a shrink wrap. Let's select this eyedropper again, and we can select this plane and change it to target normal project. And let's get rid of this mirror modifier first. And let's first apply the subdivision, so Ctrl A to apply it, and then the shrink wrap. And now we can add a mirror again, and select everything, and E to extrude it to about here. And right click, shade smooth. And we can also give it another subdivision. So we can select this object, right click, and set origin to geometry. And we can select this object and press the period key and 3D cursor. We also have to move this origin to this object. So let's select this object, Shift S, cursor to select it, and then this one, right click, set origin to 3D cursor. And now we can select this object, Shift D and SY -1. And now it is on the other side like this. So a plane and RX90, and we can scale it again, and let's move it to the front, and we can move it in the middle to about here. Let's make a loop cut, and we can select these vertices, X and vertices, and also a mirror, so we can make everything a bit more smaller. And don't forget your clipping. Let's select these both here and move them down, so G and Z, just a tiny bit. And now we can select this edge and just extruding it. Apply the mirror, and let's add a shrink wrap, and target this object and change it to normal project. Apply it and select everything, and E to give it some thickness. And now we can give it some subdivision, so Ctrl 2 to give it subdivision. And let's add this big crystals here, so we can cursor to select it And let's go to Shift A, Mesh, and we can add a icosphere and scale it down. And let's go to our toggle view, and let's go to free, and so the side view, and edit mode, and let's go to our X-ray mode, so Alt and Z, and we can press K, and we have this knife tool here, and we can start from top, so here, and press A, and it is straight, and you also have to press C to cut it through, so C, and then just down here, and click it and enter. And now we have made a cut in the middle, and we can go to free again, and let's go to face select, and we can select all of these faces and delete them. Now we can select this ring by holding Alt and click it. Then we can come up here by face and grid fill. So mine is 3 and 3, so span is 3, and also the offset. And we can come back, and we can also scale it on the Z axis, so S and Z, to make it a bit longer. And let's also bring it more outside, and we can also make it a bit more narrow, so S and Y, and let's bring it to the top like here, and we can bring it to the other side as well. So select this object again and cursor to select it, and now your crystal, and right click, set origin to 3D cursor, and period key and 3D cursor, and Shift D and SY-1, and now we have moved it to the other side. And let's make these rings, so cursor to select it, let's go to 1, and we can come here to curve, and let's add a circle, and R to rotate it, so RX 90, and make it smaller, and we have to move it to the front, and S and X to make it thinner, like this. And now we can come to the curve properties and to geometry and bevel, and now we can give it some depth, and also apply the scale so it doesn't look this weird, so Ctrl A and scale, and we can make the same as before, so we can just cursor to select it and select this ring and Shift D and SY-1, and now we have it to the other side. Don't forget your 3D cursor, and now we can make this smaller one, so let's go to 1, and we can add some more curves, so curve and circle, and this time we can make it very thin, so just something about this. And let's convert it back to a mesh, so right click, convert to mesh, and now we can sculpt it a bit, so we can come here and sculpt mode, and don't forget to save your file. And what we can do, we can come here to this elastic deform and F to make it smaller or bigger, and now we can just move this a bit more around so it doesn't look this perfect, so it has some variation. And now we can just copy this one, so let's go back to object mode, and let's Shift D and make it a bit bigger, and let's go to sculpt mode again, and we can sculpt it a bit more differently than the other one, and we have to move it in place, so let's move them. And now we can just select everything, so let's see what we have here. So we have to select the other ones, so this one and these ones, and don't forget to move it to this cursor here, so let's make that. So right click, set origin to 3D cursor, and also the other ones, and let's select all of them. Shift D and SY-1, and let's add some diamonds, so we can go to 1, so Shift A and mesh and diamonds, and we can add some brilliant diamond and RX 90, and we have to bring it more to the front. And let's just move it in place and change your period again to median point. And let's move it again to here. And now we can just copy it all the way to here and one here. And now we have all of these diamonds here, and we can select one. And let's scroll all the way down and Ctrl Shift and select all of them. And Ctrl J, so we have just one object. And right click, set origin to 3D cursor, and Shift D, and don't forget your period to your 3D cursor, and S, X, -1, and you can also move it to the back. So again, let's select them and Shift D, S, Y, -1. And now we can move on to the handle, and let's select this middle part, Shift S and cursor to select it. And now we can just select a circle and scale it down to about here. And let's go to edit mode and vertex select everything and E and Z. And also change it back to your median point and let's scale it. And we can also fill this down here, so F to fill it and I for insetting. And now we can select everything, Alt and E, and extrude faces along normals and then just move it in. So let's just add a bevel modifier. So search for bevel. So 2 segments and move it a bit like this. And also a subdivision, so Ctrl 2 and shade smooth. Select this ring here, Shift D and P selection. And now we have this ring. And you can go to edit mode and select everything and then just extruding it up, so E and Z, and make it a bit smaller. And also we can move it a bit more down here, so let's move it a bit more down like this, and right click and shade smooth. And for the top part we can separate this, so we can select this ring and Shift D, P selection, and we can extrude it up and also extrude it again. And let's go to 1 to see it better. Let's select this one here and S, and also this one. Let's make it bigger and move it a bit more down. And also let's make this a bit bigger and double G to move it down. And also this one, double G. And now we can just fill this down here and I for insetting. And also up here. So E and S to move it in like this. Right click, shade smooth, and we can select this ring again, Shift D and P selection. And now we can select it and select everything and extrude it up. And we can make it bigger like this. And 1 loop cut in the middle like this and S to make it smaller. And we also have to get rid of the bevel. Ctrl B to bevel it and give it some segments. And right click, shade smooth, and right click, set origin to geometry and Shift S, cursor selected. So plane, and let's rotate it and make it smaller. And we can move it up. So let's make this more thinner, so S and X. And we can select this one and move it up. And let's select this edge and E and Y to move it to about this. So make it around the same as the other one. And we can give it some loop cuts. And let's bevel them, so Ctrl B to bevel them. And just 1 loop cut in the middle, select the middle one, so holding Alt and Shift. Change your period to your individual origins and also enable your proportional editing. And now we can just scale them a bit. And let's give this loop cuts in the middle like this. And we can select these ones and S to move them a bit up. And we have to move it in place, so let's move this to here, to this corner here, and let's rotate it. And now we can just select this top part and don't forget your proportional editing. Let's go to 7 so we can see it better, to about here, and right click, shade smooth, and also a subdivision. And let's also give it some bevel, so bevel modifier, and move this above the subdivision. And let's go to edit mode, select everything and Alt E, extrude faces along normals. And now we can give it some thickness. And let's select these both vertices here. And we can come here to this normal. And now we can just select these arrows and move this arrow a bit up. And now we have to move the origin to the middle. So let's select this object, right click and set origin to 3D cursor. And we have to change it back. So up here we have to change it to global. And now we can go to our period and 3D cursor and Shift D, RZ90. And once more, so RZ90, and again. And I think the bevel is too sharp, so we can just delete it. So let's go to 1 and edit plane. And let's rotate it and make it smaller. We can give 1 loop cut here in X-ray mode, and we can select these both and change back to median point and S to scale it. And you can disable your proportional editing. And now we can just give it a shape. And let's move it to the front so we can see it. And we can select this vertex and move it down. And let's just extrude it up here, and we can scale it and extrude it again and scale it. and we also have to move it a bit closer, so let's move it closer to here, and let's select these up here and G and Y. We can also scale this a bit more outwards, and then we can select this down here and move this more inwards. We also have to scale it a bit more down, so we can select these ones here and this one, and S and X, and let's give it one more loop cut here, and we can select these ones and scale it. And we can also select all of them. Let's go to edit mode, select everything and individual origins, and let's make them bigger. And Ctrl 2 to give it subdivision. Select everything, Alt and E, and extrude faces along normals. And let's add a mesh and UV sphere. And right click, shade smooth, and now we can just match it. Select this object, and we have to move the origin to this 3D cursor, so right click and set origin to 3D cursor. And now we can just copy it, so Shift D and RZ90. And I forgot to mention, we have to press your period and change it to your 3D cursor. And we can make these round objects here, so we can select this one here, and let's make the point. So Shift S, cursor selected, and we can add a cube and scale it down. And we can give it some subdivision, so Ctrl 3. A subdivision of 2 is enough, and we can apply it, so Ctrl A to apply. And now we can go to edit mode, so G to grab them and then just give it a shape. And right click, shade smooth, and we can give it some more subdivision. And let's go to 1 and rotate it. And let's change the gizmo to normal and click this arrow here and R and Y to rotate it down. And again change your period to your 3D cursor, and we can select this object and cursor to select it. And now select this one here and Shift D and RZ90, Shift A and mesh and plane, and this time we don't rotate it, so change it back to your median point and scale it down. And now we can go to edit mode, select everything and E to extrude it, and we can extrude it one more time and scale it down, and we can give it some subdivision, and also we can move this up and extrude it one more time and scale it down. And let's go to toggle view to see it better, and I right click, shade smooth, and let's Shift S, cursor selected, and you can select a curve and a circle, and let's make it smaller. And let's go back to our curve properties and geometry and bevel, and we can scale it up like this. And we can also add some decorations here, so we can select these faces here and Shift D and P selection. And now we can give one loop cut here and also one here, and we can go to face select and select these both faces here and delete them. And now we can select these edges and E to extrude them down, and we can bring them closer together, so S and X. And now we can just extrude it again, and now we can just press F to fill it, and we can go to edit mode again, select everything and Alt E, extrude faces along normals. And now we can just rotate it again, so we can select this object, Shift S, cursor selected, and then this one, Shift D and RZ90. And here we can give some more decorations, so we can Shift S, cursor selected, and mesh and plane, and make it smaller, and go to edit mode and disable this, and then move it to here and rotate it. And now we can just select this edge here and extrude it, and Ctrl 2 to give subdivision and one loop cut here and one in the middle. And we can also bring this more up like this, shade smooth, and select everything, so edit mode, select everything, Alt E, extrude faces along normals. And now we can select these faces and go back, and you can move them a bit more in, rotate it some more, so move this period point to your median point and just rotate it like this, so Shift D and R and Z to move it to here. We can also copy this ring up here and bring it down, so let's bring it to here and make it bigger. And once we have that, we can select this object and Shift S, cursor to select it, and now we can select a circle and RX90, and let's go to 1 and we can scale it down, and let's go to edit mode and we can move this to the side to here, and let's scale it down. And now we can add a screw modifier and change the axis to the Y axis, and now we can move the screw to something like this. And now we can just select this one and Ctrl 2 to give it a subdivision. And lastly, we can create this spheres here. So we can go to 1. So let's go here and select this one, cursor to selected. And we can first select a curve and circle and R, Y, and 90 and scale it down. And let's go to 3 and we can move this to here. So let's go to the curve properties and depth and let's move this up. And now we can cursor to selected and select a sphere. And we forgot to copy this object and move it to the other side. So let's select this blade and Shift S, cursor to selected. And let's first move the origin to the middle. So right click and set origin to geometry. And now Shift S, cursor to selected and select these objects and period and 3D cursor. Shift D and SY -1. And now we have finished the modeling part and we can move on to the materials. So we can just hide this one. And we can select these crystals here. Let's select both. And Shift S, cursor to selected. And let's add a empty. So Shift A, empty and cube. Right click and adjust empty size. Or we can move it a bit more to the middle and adjust it a bit. And we can also make this a bit longer so it is filling this whole object. And now we can select everything by holding A. And lastly the empty, so it is orange, and Ctrl P and object, keep transform. And now we have one object and we can move it around. And next we can select a camera, so Shift A, camera, and we can move it to the back and Alt and R, RX90. And don't forget to move it back to your median point, so RX90. And let's go to 0 and we can adjust the size. So 1080 and 1920. And let's just move it, and we can also make the focal length a bit bigger like this. And let's open a new window and press T to hide it, and also the overlays. And let's just move it to the back, so G and Y. And don't forget to change it up here also, and don't forget to save your file as well. And once we have that, we can just select this window and shader editor. And we can also select a HDRI, so let's select this word and click this yellow dot and change it to environment texture, and then just use your HDRI you have. And we can also move to rendered view so we can see it better. So let's first do the blade, so we can select the blade and add new, and let's name it metal. We can move the metallic all the way up, and we can move the roughness a bit more down to maybe a 0.2. So I give it some pinkish color like this. Choose a color that you like. And next we can select the other parts. So let's select also this one here and these ones. So this one, and also don't forget the ones on the back. And lastly the one with the material, and Ctrl L and link materials. And we can also select this one. So let's select this one here. And also these parts here. And this one in the middle. And the handle. And also this one up here. And these ones also. And lastly the one with the material, and Ctrl L and link materials. And next we can give it some gold material, so we can select this one here and new and name it gold. You can make it a color that you like. I think golden looks pretty nice. And the roughness can be 0.3 or maybe a bit darker so it looks better. Or let's make the roughness a 0.25. And now we can select these objects as well. And this one, and also this one here. And lastly the one with the material, and Ctrl L and link materials. And for these ones we can just give it a metallic color, so let's select these rings. And the one with the material, and Ctrl L, link materials. We can also select these ones and make this golden. And also this ring here. Let's select these faces by holding Alt and Shift D and P selection. Also we have to fill this face here, so let's fill that. So we can select this edges and F to fill this. And we can make this golden. Alt and E, extrude faces along normals. And let's select this crystal and new and name it crystal. And now we can move the roughness down, add a noise texture and also a color ramp, and connect the color into the color and the factor into the factor, so we can add one more and make the size much down. And let's increase the details and also the roughness, and you have to move these colors more together. And now we can go to this transmission and move the weight all the way up like this. You can make the colors a bit more subtle if you like, but I think it is good. Or you can give it some emission if you want, so you can move the emission more up. And you can connect the color into the color of the emission and also the other crystal. And we have to make these ones also golden, so let's make them gold. And also this object here. And we can select these diamonds and give them a separate material, so name them diamonds. And we can make the transmission all the way up, and the roughness we can bring it a bit down. And now we can select the other ones and then these ones, Ctrl L and link materials. And we can select one of these rings and change it to gold. And for these orbs we can just make a new material and the same process, so a noise texture and a color ramp, and connect the color into the color and factor into factor. And we can give it more colors and let's make it brighter. And we can make it very shiny, so we can make the roughness almost all the way down. And we can also give this some transmission, so let's give this a bit of transmission. And we can make the colors much more subtle, so let's select the colors. And now we just can select the other parts and lastly do one with the material, Ctrl L and link materials. And lastly we can give this some scratches. For the scratches I have the materials from Polygon. You can find the link in the description below. So we can select the white one and just drag it into Blender like this. And once you have it in your scene we can add a bump, so Shift A and search for bump. And we can plug it into the normal and plug the color into the height. So now you see it is very strong, so we can change the strength. So let's change the strength to a 0.1 and the distance also to a 0.01. And now it looks much better. And as you can see it is the wrong direction, and also check non-color. So let's go up here and change the face orientation. And now we see this red and that means it is inside. But this is not correct, so we have to change that. So let's go to edit mode and select everything and Shift and N to recalculate the normals. And if it doesn't change color, then you have to check inside. And everything should be blue, so we have to repeat the same process for every piece. So just repeating this process until everything is blue. And now this should be correct. So now it has the right direction. And don't forget to unwrap everything, so you unwrap in cube projection. And now we have to do the same process of everything we have here, so just unwrap in cube projection. And now we can also do this crystal, so the same process, and also with the gold material, so we just have to plug this in. You can also give this some subdivision if you like, and right click, shade smooth, and we can select these edges here and go to N and add a mean crease like this. And let's select the handle and copy the material. And we can add a bump texture and connect the bump into the normal and a magic texture and connect the color into the height. And now we can just adjust it, so let's increase the scale. And the bump is too strong, so we can make this 0.1 and the strength to 0.2. Let's give this just 20,000. And for the material up here, we can also give the same roughness, like the same patterns. So we can click this here and change it to this other material, so this one here. Go here to this world and we can click this node and click Ctrl T. And next we can just rotate it, so we can go here to the Z-axis. So let's rotate it on the Z-axis to 180 degrees and the Y-axis to 4. And the x-axis do something like 22. And for the strength you can set it to 0.3. So let's add one arrow light and bring it to the front, RX90. And let's just adjust it, and you can rotate it a bit on the z-axis. And let's go to top view, and you can bring it to about here. And we can also make it a bit longer and bring it more down. And now we can go to this light bulb here, and you can type in 50. So let's just copy this, Shift D, and we can bring it over on the x-axis and rotate it again. And we can give this maybe a strength of 30. And we should also give one light on the back, so let's copy this, Shift D, and rotate it. And let's make the HDRI a bit more brighter. We can also make one light on the top, so we can copy this and Alt and R. And now we can just place it to here, and we can make it a bit bigger on the x-axis. And let's rotate it a bit to something like this. And we can make it a bit more to the back. And now we can also animate this, and we can give it some rotation. And as you can see down here, it is pretty dark, so we can copy this one and bring it down. And we can make it smaller, and we can rotate it a bit more up. And now we can just select this empty, and we can go to 1, and we can give it some tilt. And we can also make a Ctrl B, and then we have just this frame. And let's give this some spinning animation, so we can come down here and change it to a timeline. And let's add a empty and a cube, and right click, adjust empty size, and we can bring it to here. And now we can select this empty from the sword, and we can add a copy rotation, and we can select this empty here. And let's change the owner to the local space, and as you can see we have the same rotation again. And let's go to start to 0, and the frames can be 120. And now we can go to here to the object properties, and here we have the rotation, so we can just make an eye, so we can set a keyframe, and then we can go to frame 180, set the keyframe to 360 plus 360, so we have 2 rotations, and we can press I to set a keyframe, and when we press play we can see we have a rotation. And let's change it to linear, so we're pressing T on your keyboard and change to linear. And I think we can maybe make one more light in the middle, so let's make one light here and change it back to your median point. As you can see the light is too bright, so let's change that. So let's make it to 20 or maybe just a 10. And let's also change these, so this can be 60 and this one maybe just 30. And once we have that we can go to the render settings. So for the render settings I have set it to cycles, and don't forget to change it to GPU compute. And next you can set it to 300 samples and denoise. And for the performance you can check all of these ones here, and don't forget your persistent data. And for the color management I have set it to AGX and very high contrast. And next we can also do some compositing, so we can render one image. So go here and render image, and once you rendered your image you can go to Compositing tab. So let's go here and press N to hide this menu. Let's click use nodes, and let's search for a view node, so Shift A and search for view, and also one glare node, so Shift A and search for glare, and plug this here and the image also onto the viewer node. And as you can see now we have a picture here, and let's press V to zoom it out, and here you can change it to something that you like. I think streaks are very nice, so we can change it to streaks, and I think it looks too bright, so we can change that. So let's make the threshold very high to something like 2.5, and don't forget to select a folder for your animation, and here you can change it, so we can change it to FFmpeg or PNG. I think FFmpeg is very easy, so we can leave it at that, and you can change the encoding to MPEG-4. And once we have finished with everything, we can go up here to render and render animation. And that's it for this tutorial. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I would also love to see your creations, so tag me on Instagram. And thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye!